You've heard it all before. Now for management education turned upside down. Our postgraduate diploma is unique and at the same time completely unconventional. Invest an hour to understand how to build your management career from the ground up. The Postgraduate Diploma in Management ensures that tomorrow's leaders are equipped with 21st century competencies for successful careers and that graduates will be in demand by employers. The program provides prospective students with or without experience who hold an undergraduate degree with a unique postgraduate opportunity to gain advanced knowledge of business and general management. Students will engage in a challenging curriculum which develops a theoretical foundation for operations and enterprise-wide risk management strategy in order to improve services and products, enhance customer experience, strengthen corporate governance, and ultimately establish competitive corporate advantage. Watch our informative presentation by Dr. Hendrik Botha, Head of Institution, who will guide you through this outstanding, unique, and encompassing qualification which provides for articulation into master's degree studies.
So the Postgraduate Diploma in Management is a uniquely designed curriculum at Boston City campus. It's registered at NQF Level 8 on the Higher Education Qualification Sub-Framework and accredited by the Council on Higher Education and also internationally accredited by the British Accreditation Council, providing meaning it's locally relevant and globally recognized and acceptable. So what's unique about this qualification is its two main purposes. Serve to advance undergraduate graduates with management qualifications to enter into mid-level, to be prepared and enter into mid-level to senior level management positions. Alternatively, it's also designed in such a manner to support undergraduate graduates with non-managerial experience or non-managerial qualifications, like, for example, in corporate South Africa or in small business environment, I have completed a BA in English and I've started a small business, so I need managerial skills. Or I have a BA in chemistry and I work with a conglomerate and I need to take charge of the labs or the research areas. Hence, the qualification will support the intentions of both types of graduates, with or without managerial experience, with or without managerial qualifications as the underbuild. I'll walk you through the curriculum now to explain how do we set a tone and a standard to elevate all students to a certain level, and how do we scaffold them from there on into the advanced terminologies required at level 8 to reposition yourself or to position or set yourself up for a managerial track. What's also unique about the postgrad diploma versus an straightforward honors qualification, the postgrad diploma provides more breadth of scope or coverage, meaning we cover more topics and a variety of topics in management to provide the scaffolding and the broad exposure in all the relevant topics in management, as opposed to a simple honors degree that will have a singular or a particular focus. So by way of example, you'll find an honors degree for 120 credits in strategic management. Its focus is 60 credits on strategic management topics, taught topics, subjects, and then 60 credits in a research component in strategic management. Whereas the PG DIP provides on average 8 to 16 credits per module on finance, on branding, on operations, on risk management, on entrepreneurship, on project management, on research methodology, etc. I'll go through those details for about 110 credits or 115 credits. And then for 15 credits, it provides an opportunity for the student to pick a research project particular to a company, to his or her own company, or to the company where they're employed, or to the target company, or to the target division in the company where they wish to be promoted to pick with management, senior management, a challenging area and unpack that and solve the problem, do the research analysis to solve that particular issue or challenge to move that business forward. So therefore, what's unique about it is the breadth of the scope that it provides. By just providing the breadth of scope is already a form of scaffolding for providing access to students without managerial competency in the undergrad to enter the postgrad management and go through all the phases and different topics, key and important topics in management. So that breadth of scope is provided through that differentiation in a postgrad diploma. The second key element is that the postgrad diploma also provides, because of that breadth, it doesn't set a particular entry requirement, meaning the entry requirement is not linked to your undergrad focus area. So with any quality undergrad degree program, you can be granted access to the PG, as opposed to the Honours in Strategic Management implies that you have a bachelor's degree in management or in commerce with a major in strategic management in order to advance the research study and focus area in strategic management. So in that sense, that's part of the scaffolding process. So let me put up the curriculum and then let me draw into how we are preparing candidates, managerial candidates for the fourth industrial revolution, and how we are unpacking the scope and challenges and developing their competencies for their own benefit and professional advancement and for the company. So the first module is I'm just going to shorten this for now, is operations and risk management. The program is 12 months in duration as a minimum duration. It's divided into 2 semesters of 6 months each, semester A and semester B. For working adults or for graduates in the early career phases, not deciding to study full-time, not being able to take advantage of not being employed and studying full-time, the recommendation is to study over 3 semesters or 4 semesters. The benefit of that appearance of a slower pace means the adult can balance the work and personal life with studies, 2 to 3 modules a semester as opposed to 5 to 6 modules per semester, and do justice to both themselves and the program by concentrating on those 2 or 3 modules at a stage, to really study them, complete all the activity, participate in the assessments. But the added advantage that comes from slowing the pace, as your work life progresses and your studies at the slower pace, you start integrating what you're learning better. Because the majority of insight from a postgrad qualification actually arrives, or the graduate intentions actually settle at graduation and post-graduation. So as you complete lesser modules at a stage, you have an opportunity to settle that knowledge as you studied off 2 or 3 modules at a stage and start with the next 2 or 3 over an 18 to 24 month period. There's much more time to digest all that techniques and knowledge and start applying it into the remaining modules, but also into your work life and work life experiences, as opposed to you're full time in a postgrad program, you're ramming off 12 months very quickly, and there's no place where you can really apply the knowledge because you're not in the workplace, but you're also consuming this vast amounts of information. It's not a negative, but it definitely there is advantages to studying part-time on a postgrad diploma with these many areas of concentration, especially if you're not from a managerial undergrad background and you're working. It helps you to digest and settle that information and develop those competencies that each module attempts to teach off. 2 is branding for small, medium enterprises. 3 is finance for corporate action. 4 is research methods. 5 is professional development. That's semester A, and then in semester B, you start with 6, human capital development. And talent management. 7 is legal aspects and negotiation skills. 8, global marketing in the digital era. 9 is research report. And then 10 sets up 3 electives to choose one from. So I'll just call it 10.1, 10.2, 10.3. These electives allow for a particular singular area that you wish to unpack further. As a matter of for professional interest or personal interest, or specifically for a very specific career objective in mind. There's advanced project management, advanced entrepreneurship, and strategic supply chain management. All 3 very exciting, but all 3 with a very specific focus in terms of where your professional interest lies, or your personal development, aligned to personal development interest. Okay, so as you can see by the way the titles have been selected for modules, it starts speaking in a bit more of a modern terminology. It's not operations management 4, it's not brand management 4 in the traditional sense, because the underlying topics have also been unpacked in a non-traditional sense to speak to the 4th Industrial Revolution. When I say speak to the 4th Industrial Revolution, we can see how operations management and risk management have been integrated as 2 standalone areas with a singular focus. Operations management is key in any managerial effort, whether you're in the services industry or in production industries or in manufacturing industries or in simply product sales. The understanding of the operations concepts, the understanding of timing, the understanding of the risks associated within ops is important, but then comes the modern nuance of enterprise-wide risk management. Because ops is such a big component of any organization, operations stimulate the production or the setting up or the delivering of the services. The enterprise faces not just risks in that area of under-delivery or not delivery or quality issues or financial, it also itself is challenged in the modern era with a framework of good governance, a framework of being environmentally sustainable, a framework of looking after its reputation, a framework of having to report whether you're owned by or invested in by a venture capital firm, or whether you've raised money from the banks, or whether you're listing, or whether you're part of a bigger conglomerate. There's always stakeholders to report to, and part of those modern stakeholder reporting, whether you're in a regulated environment or in a financial managed environment, the regulatory frameworks require companies today to report annually or biannually on enterprise-wide risk. Do you understand it? Do you understand how your reputation needs to be put on the risk agenda and taken care of? And that reputational risk can emanate from operations challenges. It can emanate from financial matters. It can emanate from how you're managing staff and dealing with staff. And so does your singular finances also. So each of the areas, the traditional areas of a business, is put into a risk management framework coupled with operations, in order for the individual to understand that they must see this holistically and integratedly. To just give you then branding for small and medium enterprises, instead of selecting brand management for, our focus is to say, entrepreneurship is an important element of South Africa. Small business creation is an important element of South Africa. It's not just a socio-economic policy framework or agenda for South Africa. It also forms part of bigger organizations' CSI efforts to say, are you integrating smaller businesses into your supply chains? Are you earning empowerment points for developing smaller enterprises? So this is not just simply by saying you are the small business owner, or you want to start a small business, or you're consulting to small businesses, or it could be that you're developing small businesses through the bigger corporate that you're involved in. But a specific understanding for branding and brand management of SMMEs is a differentiated understanding of how does brand management become applicable, how is it actually applied in the life of a smaller organization. Whereas in the traditional sense, branding is always understood as this big theory for this big corporates, and we think always when we say branding, we think of the big brands that dominate our lives. We think Apple, we think Coca-Cola. There's principles there that's not always understood and how it's to be applied in the smaller context, because the smaller context doesn't have the money, doesn't have the budget, doesn't yet have the presence that it can lever off. So this is to bring a fundamental understanding how to apply those sought after principles into the smaller context. And again, from a context of whether you are going to become the small business owner, whether you'll be a management consultant to a small business owner, whether you'll be in a corporate, having to engage with smaller brands to develop them as part of your empowerment agenda, or as simply absorbing them into the supply chain, but understanding their brand so that there's a better cooperation between yourself and them. Finance for corporate action. This is always a tricky one. It's about numbers, and we understand that in traditional sense how everybody runs away from numbers except the chartered accountants. However, there is no complete armament for a managerial track without an understanding of numbers. So we took a differentiated view to say we want to focus on the finances that drives corporate action. When we say drive corporate action, corporate decision making. So to unpack that, it's in the basic sense, you're a general manager for a division. Do you understand budgets? Do you understand how to control budgets? Do you understand how to deal with variances? Do you understand how to read the basics of the balance sheets for your division? Do you understand the effect of decision making on the P&L statement and on the balance sheet? Do you understand how to lever the balance sheet? Do you need to make loans? How do you lever? Which levers do you pull? To increase cash flows, to increase churn. So it's not about the manager being able to do their own set of accounts, their own set of books, their own trial balances, their own journal entries. It's about the manager understanding the numbers that surround them. And these numbers, part of a risk agenda, part of a broader framework, understanding the numbers that drives your business and how you can drive numbers, how your decisions, or how you can start thinking about potential decisions and how that decisions will affect the numbers. Because ultimately, whether you're self-owned, whether you're invested in a part of a bigger conglomerate, it's about the balance sheet. If there's a good return, if the numbers are good on the balance sheets and the P&L statement, the P&L statements are good, the cash flows are good, the balance sheet will be good, it will make the business stronger. It will make it more sought after. So that the manager understands decisions, whether it's for branding, whether it's for human capital, take it through the balance sheet framework, take it through a corporate action framework to understand what these decisions will mean, quantitatively and qualitatively. So yes, you want to advance your talent, you want to spend money, how's that going to affect this? Yes, there's a qualitative effort with improvement of people will bring productivity, but where will the productivity be affected? What is the outcome you're driving when you say I want to invest in people? Is it just you're investing, or is there a specific area you want to invest to improve productivity? Because when that productivity improves, this cash flow effect out, and the inflow is less cost per unit on the sales and therefore profitability, that you understand these numbers, because especially in raising money, especially in working in bigger corporate arenas, understanding numbers are the people who remain around the table when big decisions are made. And so this is also a key part for promotion, professional development. We simply have to have a grasp around the numbers. We've further taken this module to also say to develop the actual skills, because we're moving from the theoretical to the application, as we've mentioned in branding, as we've mentioned in ops. And in finance for corporate action, we do a twofold. We have a textbook with a selection of topics relevant, the theoretical topics in finance, relevant for developing the mid-level manager. But then we've also integrated with a workbook on Excel, that they can actually work with the numbers, work with the computations in Excel, just mimicking just as it is in the workplace. Meaning you receive a set of numbers from the accounting department, the finance one in Excel. So work up in Excel, work the ratios, make your decisions, apply those effects into Excel so that it runs the computations and you can see the varied outcomes. So we have moved the needle here and saying make it applicable, make it practical. So when they step back into the workplace, or for the first time, if you're an undergraduate who've just completed and moving full-time into the program, that you're confident moving into the workplace. I've worked with spreadsheets, I've worked with computations and balance sheets, and manipulating some data instruments in Excel, the formulas, I can work with it. Research methods. So, research methods is a key area, and so is a key area most likely wholly misunderstood in South Africa. Part of the broader objectives of this program is a managerial competency around praxis in research. When I say praxis in research, understand the challenges that a business faces. It's not increasing its brand awareness. Why is it not increasing its brand awareness? How do I study the topic? How do I, in that business, go and unpack the challenges facing this business to undertake that research? So part of the misunderstoodness is research methods is traditionally taught in South Africa by throwing a textbook on the theory of research methods, and it postulates on all the various forms of research and the nature of research and how you do sampling and etc., but it's seemingly unable to turn it into a practical understanding for students, to understand how does research methods from theory become live? How do I actually use this on a day-to-day basis? So I'm just going to unpack research at the first stage for you now, and then I'll come back to the research component. In essence, we've done the same as in corporate finance. We took two parts to it. We took the first part, the textbook, on the theory. We've selected specific topics for that to teach those components, to give the theoretical grounding, and then we've added a workbook on quantitative methods in Excel, where the student actually engages with data and with some case studies that we've preset, that they can work the numbers, that they can work the statistics to say, yes, we've done a quick snap survey of 10 of our biggest suppliers. We've asked them these questions. I've inputted it into Excel. I've run the numbers. I did the regressions, and this is the outcomes. That the student is actually practically able to grapple with research, as opposed to it's this theoretical construct. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to unpack the problem. I don't know where it's going to lead to or what to deal with the outcome. So this makes research methods very practical. Fifth one is professional development. So in terms of the sequencing, we understand that semester A is jam-packed. We understand semester B is jam-packed. Because the research report, which is a big endeavor, individual undertaking by a student with our supervisory support, we needed to start professional development in semester A and not in semester B. However, that does not mean the student won't benefit from it at the end of the semester, and looking back when they exit, they'll reflect again on the skills accumulated here and experiences they had. The purpose of professional development is in the distance mode and in the online mode is to mimic the best full-time contact programs globally. When I say mimic what the best full-time contact programs do globally is, they take in small groups of, say, 20 to 60 students into 3 cohorts of 20 each or 30 each. And in the duration spent at those elite campuses, they help prepare the student to say, let's stand back a bit from all the casework and all the knowledge. Let's think about your leadership attributes, how you understand the world of work. Let's evaluate your management competencies to see where there's potential gaps or strength or areas for improvement or areas for growth or areas where you're strong at and you didn't realize it and that you can become inspired about and work with you in developing those skills. Then ultimately to help you think from standing back a bit from all the skills and all the experiences you've acquired to reposition yourself for the job market. Now, being able to reflect on the learning experience, being able to reflect on the acquired skills, and to reflect in context of your past experiences, where you've been successful, unsuccessful, how your new skills can assist you. So how do you reposition yourself into the job market in the future? How do you re-represent yourself into the job market. But it's also about being specifically aware, becoming specifically aware of the challenges of the fourth industrial revolution, meaning working in virtual realm with recruiting staff. Being project-based, but everybody is spread across the country or across the continent or across the globe. You rarely will ever meet individuals other than over a Teams meeting or a traditional Skype meeting. How do you handle those communication challenges? Because you don't necessarily have the personal interaction. How do you become more productive and more focused on what's important? But also, furthermore, it mimics an opportunity for the students to learn in a differentiated manner about these key concepts. And when I say that, what I mean by that is, we've also selected in this module 3 reading books, 3 novels. We've selected The Goal by Laia Goldratt. We've selected Personal Brand Intelligence by Timothy Webster. And we've selected Kitchen Confidential, that many of you will know, from Anthony Bourdain, as reading pieces. As small pieces of quick literature. The purpose for these selections is to say, for example, in The Goal, you can learn about the operations environment through a novel and not necessarily only through theory. Hear other voices, see other viewpoints on how ops is dealt with, but through a novel approach, i.e. being in a novel, in a story being told that grasps the reader, that holds it, that keeps the topic interesting and relevant for you. So 2 things happen in that process. The one is the student who's never been exposed in undergrad or in their work career to ops management, where they deal with that module that's complex. All of a sudden there's also a novel, a story about the operations environment to help unpack. And whether you're already from that environment, the novel is just a unique way of bringing some new themes and new topics to insight for the student. But what it also does is this, the story and the novel contextualizes, by way of example, this specific example is, it's about an individual who works at a manufacturing plant in the US. And the novel also tells the story of all the life stresses that goes with a failing business. I.e., he had to deal with his wife wanting to divorce him. His children's school fees were unpaid and they still need to be driven around on a daily basis. This big European conglomerate that's squeezing them out of the market and another one trying to buy them. He needs to motivate his staff while dealing with the operations challenges. While the cash flows aren't working, he needs to solve ops, he needs to solve his family life. He needs to deal with the personal stress of potentially a failing business, a failing career, and navigating inside the corporate. All these nuances and relationships and stakeholders demanding their own slice of the cake and setting themselves up inside the company and with the company. So the complexity of that, all of a sudden ops becomes live in a real manner. And that mimics also our individual lives. We are continuously challenged by all these things, yet we need to focus on getting the job done. So what it does is, in a personal development framework, it shows that it helps to highlight how to manage all these other areas of your life while you're in the midst of all this noise and chaos and pressures. The same with Kitchen Confidential, somewhat typical of an education institution of teaching and learning. There's some controversial issues and language in that reader, but it is a postgraduate student after all, and that beautifully narrates the story of Anthony Bourdain, explaining how he set up his entrepreneurial life, how he fought to have access to kitchens, then to become a cook, and then to become a great chef. It explains that whole journey of the operations in the kitchens and the business. It explains the entrepreneurial challenge of making decisions to balance how much money to use to take in stock, how do you price your product, how do you fight for feet on the street with so many restaurants competing with each other, how do you compete with talent in the kitchens, because everybody who's entering the kitchens wants in and wants to become the top chef and the top paid. So, and also life happens with him. He narrates his life story, where he developed some negative habits, and that influenced his career, and how he managed to pull back from that amidst the fighting for a career, fighting for a space. So that also provides a positive view for professional development. And again, he tells the entrepreneurial story and elucidates on the entrepreneurial story, which has a great connection with advanced entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship, because many times he's developed restaurants for other business holders. So it was an intrapreneurial opportunity. So whether you're in a corporate or whether you're on a standalone small business owner basis, there's relevance in it. And then finally, we've also selected Timothy Webster's Personal Brand Intelligence book, which narrates, Timothy Webster narrates a few short stories of key figures in South Africa and on the African continent of how they've developed their personal brands over the last 20 years. Without naming names, the principle is he explains how Black Like Me, for example, Herman Mashama, developed his personal brand, continues to refresh his brand and repositions his brand, and uses his personal brand to leverage for new opportunities. So that again is a way of example of how the professional development is elucidated in real terms, in practical terms, to help reposition yourself for the future, and how to reinvent your own brand. As the ultimate activity here rests with repositioning a new resume. What have you learned? What have you accumulated from the past? How do you reinterpret, understand that to reposition your CV and your resume and your personal brand statement for the foreseeable future? So this activity will simply just repeat itself when you graduate. You'll simply just go through the motions of repositioning yet again after acquiring another set of knowledge skills and integrating it with the past. And having done the exercise, practice makes perfect, you'll re-exercise again and reposition yourself. This is encapsulated by two other core activities mimicked at the best full-time programs globally. And that is, there is a managerial psychometric competency battery, a 180-degree battery at the onset, and a 360 battery at the outset of the module. And what those does is it's linked to the outcomes, the core managerial competencies and outcomes that this program espouses with in-demand managerial, mid-level managerial skill sets in the fourth industrial revolution. To say, evaluate yourself. We have a registered psychologist at the background who deals with us on a one-on-one basis for our learners. We don't have insight into it because it remains that is a personal item, but it helps you to gain access to those batteries, to self-assess against those batteries, to determine, to see which ones you excel at and which you don't excel. Because it's not always about improving where you're not strong, it's also about understanding where you are strong to lever that even further, but that you're aware of that. And then at the outset, a 360 where you invite previous colleagues or students or peers or current managers or junior staff into the process to also do an evaluation so that you can see how after 6 months of growth, how are you rated and how do you rate yourself versus at the onset of the program. Because the answer of this module is at the onset of the semester, so it provides a nice capstone event for you. It also provides an experience for students not yet in corporate South Africa, where corporate South Africa or the FTSE 100 uses psychometric batteries as part of the evaluation process. For taking up mid-level to senior level staff. They also want to understand. So it also provides an experience for you if you've not been through that yet. So that's a key component for us. So without going too much into these topics, before I go into this, I just quickly want to run by the assessment structure. Because the assessment structure is about integrating this content and about highlighting the skill and developing the skills. What we've uniquely done in terms of the design for this program. We've selected textbooks, as we briefly explained. We've selected a range of textbooks which I'll place, this is semester A's, which I'll place on a more appropriate position for the next recording. These textbooks have all been selected based on their content, based on their design, based on their look and feel, which is important to us, and based on the volume of learning. Because we also understand there's a volume of learning that needs to be presented by this program in order to provide appropriate depth for each topic, but also to be specific in order to provide 120 credits worth of learning. Volume is also represented in that exchange of credits, the required reading, volume of reading. What's important about the look and feel for us for these textbooks are that we've selected on par international textbooks. It is a postgraduate program in management, and our current understanding is in the postgraduate space, with these variety of topics, the international textbooks are better suited to talk and pitch at the level 8 level of complexity with sufficient depth in each of these core areas in order to provide the correct and most accurate and most contemporary information sets available for each area. When I say international, that doesn't mean the program does not have a South African flavor. The South African flavor in the program comes through the selection of journal articles we've made, comes through the selection of assessments we've made that involves the student in the local context. So international doesn't mean it's non-South African. International doesn't mean it's specific to a single country. It simply means it's of those international publishing houses, they've selected the best text globally and information sets to position a book. So this is not a South African book or a US book or a British book. It's an international text that speaks to the world of business. Whether you are local, grappling with international theory to unpack your global business with one, or whether you're positioning in a corporate to go international, the texts are valuable. The look and feel is important to us because we also acknowledge that the student will need to spend time in the textbooks, reading studying the outcomes, reading the content, grappling with some of the case studies presented in the text, and therefore the layout of the size of the pages, the layout of the content on the pages, that there's 1 or 2 or 3 tone color in the textbooks is important to us because it makes the learning experience exciting. It makes the learning experience not dreadful. Oh, tonight I must sit with the 400 pages of ops management, all just back to back, end to end, from one corner to the other corner, there's text. No, we have not selected books in that manner. So pictures are important to us because pictures sometimes just helps to make the mental connection, the mental reminder about something. Graphs and illustrations are important to us, color is important to us. So we've selected books according to those areas according to those criteria to underpin the content and the teaching and learning that we'll unpack shortly. And in addition to it, we've included the textbooks in the delivery of the program, meaning the student does not need to log in somewhere else or ask you for additional money as the sponsor, because we provide the textbooks upon registration. So the student is set up from day one to say, here's your pack of books, be very excited. It also feels very nice to receive a good set of quality books. We were all students in the past, we all know how important that is. And that actually makes the studies get started. The student can unpack it, be proud of the books, and see them on the desk. And for those mid-level managerial egomaniacs, you can show it to all your colleagues as they walk past your office, your list of contemporary information sets. Okay, so the first element in unpacking the teaching and learning is this is the curriculum. We briefly went through the curriculum. We briefly went through the textbooks where a big component of the learning transpires. Then we jump into the digital area now. So in the digital area, we've created a unique digital guide for each of these modules. This digital guide is unpacked in 11 units of learning. 1 to 11. There's 11 chapters, digital chapters, provided in our online learning management system for each module. Each unit makes a combination of the underlying text that's relevant for each unit of learning of study. So this is a pathway, this is a guide and a pathway for the student of what to study and when to study. So each digital unit is a condensation of the underlying content, so that if we prescribe chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the first week of learning, then those 4 chapters are re-represented, condensed and summarized somewhat, and important concepts from those 4 chapters are then espoused in this unit of digital learning. So it helps the student to focus. I've received now this pack of information, but where do I start? How do I start? What do I do this week? So setting now we've described the modules and underlying textbooks. To set the semester in motion, Boston organizes each semester into 14 weeks of teaching and learning, which is critical to understand because it guides and assists the students and sets the postgraduate student up for success. This 14 weeks is as highly organized as corporate South Africa is, in the sense that it's broken down into, it's set up as a program for 14 weeks of study with its underlying project time and intervals and due dates and deliverables, so that the student can always be assured of what's behind and what's not delivered and what is to be delivered, to prepare and plan, and to continuously reevaluate and deal with variances in their studies. As I fall behind, I know exactly what I'm behind with. Each week is also unpacked very specifically that what I don't understand, I can highlight and raise with my educators or with the faculty that supports us. So each semester is divided into 14 weeks of teaching and learning. Weeks 5 and 6 and weeks 11 and 12 and 15 and onwards is dedicated to assessments. So the formal assignments, the formal projects, the formal presentations, the formal submissions students will make, formal exams undertake, is scheduled for during these periods. During these periods, there is no teaching and learning required from the institution, meaning the student will recap information that's required to be recapped, or the student will catch up on where they've maybe missed a small period of learning within this window and undertake the assessments to be submitted for grading and for feedback in order to advance the next phase of learning. That means there are technically 10 weeks of core teaching and learning. Where you grapple with the contents of the underlying syllabus within the curriculum. So what we've done with these textbooks is we've created a digital guide. For each module, we've created a digital guide. The digital guide collapses the prescribed textbooks we've shown to you, and it sets out a teaching path, week by week by week by week, in a prescribed manner for each module, so that the student understands during each week what are the required outcomes for this week in this module to master? Where does the contents for that outcomes to be mastered, where does it sit? So in this week, we discussed the introductory concepts to ops. So which chapters do you need to look at in which textbook? If we have additional resources that have a bearing on this week's of learning, the links are provided inside this digital book to say, also view this, also read this small piece in the news, in an old newspaper article, etc., etc. So these 10 units of digital learning is the students' path for teaching and learning and success. So that they don't feel overwhelmed by having received all of these texts and what now? What do I do? Where do I go?
Welcome to a quick showcase of a digital textbook for a module within the Postgraduate Diploma in Management. For a seamless experience, these are accessed within the learning management system within each of the modules. Let us choose the module Legal Aspects and Commercial Negotiations. As mentioned in our presentation, every semester is made up of 18 weeks, of which 10 weeks are specifically dedicated to teaching and learning. This is where the digital textbooks, consisting of 10 units each, serve as the primers to constructively guide students at 1 unit per week through the underlying theories presented within each of the prescribed textbooks that are handed out at the onset of the semester. In turn, each unit consists of various sections, which are intuitively navigatable. For example, students can jump between sections, or can call up the playlist of video lectures, or the list of learning activities. At the onset of each section, the outcomes to be achieved are summarized. These are also described in detail within the teaching plan, presented in the course outline of every module, also made available within the learning management system. Within each section, specific reference is made to the relevant segments of the prescribed textbooks, which represent the core readings, as well as the additional recommended readings. Various forms of learning activities are presented in the form of short and long question statements with suggested solutions and model answers. Test Your Knowledge 2A, a series of questions, some model answers, and some additional work of theory in practice with specific reference to the textbook, some additional readings thereon, and then a model answer. Video lectures are also provided on key themes for additional insight into specific subject matter.
The on-demand economy we discussed in the previous section is also known as the gig economy. It is dominated by millennials and uses crowdsourcing to access
And at the concluding stage is an interactive quiz pitched at the appropriate level of complexity to provide for summary engagement and some informal feedback on a student's progress. Trust that you have found this to be an informative experience of the uniquely designed digital textbooks.
The next phase that's important for us in the digital guide, that is differentiated from e-readers, etc., etc. The outcomes are presented, the core concepts are highlighted for the student that's relevant to the outcomes for that week of teaching and learning, and then a series of lectures are sequenced and situated inside the digital text for the student to watch. Those lectures are lectures about the core concepts, to unpack it for the student, in order for the student to listen to a lecturer's voice and to watch the video, to be somewhat also entertained by it. And those minutes range from 5 to 20 minutes a piece, depending on the underlying complexity of the concept that's being unpacked. So that it's not over-encompassing and it doesn't feel boring to those who don't necessarily like to sit in their chairs after they've worked all day. Now they still need to sit and listen. So depending on the concept, the minutes will vary, but it's normally not longer than 20 minutes, because then a concept is rather divided into two concepts and instead two pieces of shorter lecture notes. But these lectures are important because it especially assists the student who for the first time enter the management domain of concepts and knowledge, because it is a differentiated voice other than your own voice that you hear when you read text. Someone is now lecturing the content. And the lecturing is also specifically situated at level 8. And the reason we're accentuating, or I'm accentuating that, to say that the concepts aren't addressed at the principles or the introductory level. We assume the student is an undergrad. By assuming the student's an undergrad, whatever degree they have certain graduate capabilities, certain graduate knowledge sets, so they must start dealing with complexity in unfamiliar terrains by lecturing at the appropriate level. So that the graduate capabilities where you don't understand, where you read you don't understand, you watch you don't understand, you then start saying, my graduate attributes to start setting in to say, where else can I go for more information? Can I reach out to the educators in Stellenbosch or the faculty for this particular module, or can I go and watch something else or read some more information sets? Because it's important as part of honing now the postgraduate capabilities we're trying to set up. Saying the self-sufficiency, the self-dependency in exploring difficult concepts also need to come to the fore while we're lecturing at the appropriate level. The third element that we've built into the digital study guide is a range of self-evaluation questions. Those have different types. Some are simply quick MCQ questions just to see where you're at, how you're holding. Are you holding the information? Are you able to recall certain important concepts? Are you aware of where we're at now? And another typology is, for example, some open-ended questions where we provide solutions for, like we do with the MCQs, to say, here is a statement, how would you unpack the response, and let's show you an example of a response to it. That tone is also set at level 8, that the student starts understanding what's the expectation when we are, the complexity of the MCQ, the complexity of the open-ended question, sets also a tone for the student to become aware of at what level are we expecting you to engage with the content in the underlying theme, in order to start prepping them for the formal formatives and the summative events. The fourth element of success for the digital guide is the digital guide is accessed via our learning management system. So the student can anywhere at any time log in to the LMS and into the digital guides. So whether you have Saturdays off, or you're planning to have Sundays off, or you're planning every morning half an hour or every evening an hour, you can log in at any point and access your digital courseware. Interesting enough, our undergraduate students have, over a cycle of 18 months, rated our learning management system at around a 98% satisfaction rate. For ease of access, ease of navigation, always available, always accessible, which enhances the student's experience, especially the postgraduates who are grappling with complex information. That underlying experience must also be smooth and seamless, which is important to us as part of setting student up for success. For the formal formative assessments and summative assessments, we provide comprehensive examples to the student. So the student is aware, as they start the semester, they are aware of what these assignments, exams, etc., projects are, but they're also aware of examples of what responses look like for previous similar questions and assignments and essays, so that it helps guide them and helps set them at ease in day one when they're grappling with this volume of learning in this complex area. And part of that scaffolding also, getting into the management domain at level 8, whether you're from or not from experienced or taught undergrad area management, that you can see what the projects look like, how are those samples being graded, that it sets you at ease and sets you in motion to start. As you look forward and you undertake each day, you know what's coming, and you can fully prepare, and you can ask questions for support from our educators in terms of preparing for these events. So now the key part in how we unpack all of this. I'm going to put up the assessment types we've selected here, because the types of assessments we ask students to engage with is how we're driving the ultimate managerial outcome, is how we ultimately develop and settle the managerial competency required for the fourth industrial revolution and required for now in South Africa. So in ops and risk management, the first assignment is a summarization exercise. So FA1, FA2, and this is summative assessment 1 and summative assessment 2. So the semester is standardized, as we indicated. Weeks 5 and 6, 11 and 12 and onwards are for formal assessment tasks. Formative assessment 1 is also always due in week 5 and 6. Formative assessment 2 is always due in weeks 11 and 12. And some assessment 1 and 2 is due weeks 15 to 18. All of the modules, except for the research report, is standardized in terms of the schedule. It's standardized in terms of each as a formative assessment 1, a formative assessment 2, a summative assessment 1 and 2. These are they are standardized at a weighting that this relative importance is set at 20% of the year mark for the module. This one is set at 20% of the year mark, and these are set at 30% each for the year mark. Summative assessment 2 attracts a particular relative importance, and there's a sub-minima set for this one of 50%, which means that you can, if you do not participate in this assessment and you do not reach 50%, or you do not reach 50%, you do not pass the module. The key reasoning behind this is, as I move through this, you will notice that there's no proctored examinations undertaken in this program. What I mean by proctored examinations, there's no 3-hour sitting when we throw an exam paper at you in a big hall with hundreds of other students, because we feel, as I'm going to unpack the assessment structure or strategy and types with you today, that the teasing out of the skill sets and the building up of those competencies in line with overall outcomes for developing good corporate and general managers and entrepreneurial managers for this program is better suited to a differentiated structure of activity and participation and praxis, as opposed to recalling 3 hours worth of knowledge sets. That means that the type we always select here becomes relative importance, and it assists us to help guide the student to reach the overall 50, but by at least one singular overall important event. So if you're busy and you decide not to participate in this, the semester is not lost. Your employer sent you to India. You can still complete the module successfully, but that one you always have to. We know students won't receive 100%. It's not because we grade them to a fail, but this is always a complex project, so therefore they need to participate in one or two of the other assessments to reach the overall 50 with this underlying 50. Okay, so inside ops and risk management, the first activity is a summarization activity, or the first assessment has to do with summarization. The next one has to do with a literature review. Essay 1 is a case study, and we call this case study closed book. I'll come back to that just in a minute. Closed book case study. And essay 2 is a conceptualization task, or tool, or instrument. In the second module, branding for small business, small and medium-sized enterprise, the FA1 is a compare and contrast activity. The second assessment is a case study open book. And summative assessment 1 is a brand awareness interview. And essay 2 is a reflective essay. For module 3, finance for corporate action, formative assessment 1 is a short, medium, and long type questions assignment. Formative assessment 2 is also a short, medium, and long type questions assignment. Essay 1 is a project on financial analysis techniques, and essay 2 is a financial modeling task using Excel. On module 4, research methods, assessment 1 is a short, medium, and long questions. Assessment 2 is also a short, medium, long questions assignment. Summative assessment 1 is your research proposal. And Summative assessment 2 is a quantitative methods modeling using Excel. For the professional career development module, this is the first one on the PIP Speaks competency batteries, plus a reflective essay on the goal. Assessment 2 is a reflective essay on Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. Summative assessment 1 is the 360 PIP Speak managerial competency battery, and the reflective essay on Timothy Webster's brand intelligence. And summative assessment 2 is the repositioning of the CV for the fourth industrial revolution. As we mentioned during the earlier stages of the discussion, that research methods is such a theoretical exercise in South Africa, which makes research, the core research skills, such a complex thing in South Africa, that so few students have research capabilities and research capacities. Research skills represent in the fourth IR 4 or 5 out of 10 core competencies. Within research skills sits problem solving, sits communication skills. Communication skills is whether it's written or oral or through presentations or through submissions. Problem solving it's also complex in that it represents identifying challenges or weaknesses or problem areas in society or in a business or in a broader organization structure, and how to unpack that problem, how to go about investigating that problem once it's identified in order to arrive at potential solutions. So research skills also represent, as part of the fourth IR managerial competencies, it says reading skills, accumulating information, making sense of the information, summarizing the information, providing feedback on the information sets. So it in itself is a core competency. Research skills also represents what I don't know or am not aware of, or am not an area I'm not skilled at. I have the capacity to go and investigate that area. Go and read up into that area in a meaningful manner, identifying important information sets from non-important information sets, isolating it, critiquing it, making sense of it, working with engagement in order to develop that new information sets of skills. So research skills really is the core at the heart of the fourth industrial revolution, and most likely represents the core of how we want to reposition and move our corporations forward in the next decade. So, how do we teach the skills? By not focusing on the individualized theory underpinning research methods. And it's through this assessment structure. So let me guide you through this using another color. So, in ops management, if we get you to do a major summarization activity and a major literature review looking at differentiated angles and information sets on risk management, it starts to develop the underlying competencies in a research report. Because what is a research report? Whether it's a formal research report in a postgraduate program or whether it's a research piece inside a company, if you can't summarize core concepts, distinguish critical core concepts from non-important concepts, how can you put together any form of research report? If you cannot undertake a literature review to help you determine what is core and non-core, to help you look at the different voices and opinions that bring to bear on a single subject matter, how can you prepare for a research report? Or how can you indicate your research report findings it's based on different voices and different arguments that's been distilled and been summarized? So we are developing through the assessment structure, both in a unique manner, the comprehension and understanding of this new topics, ops and risk, branding and SMEs, but in preparation of undertaking your own research report and your own life skill of undertaking research activity. The next element in that semester sits in branding, where we indicate there's a compare and contrast activity. Again, how do you undertake research if you can't compare and contrast differentiated information sets against you to distill an outcome? How can you do triangulation of various information sets if you cannot compare and contrast? An open case study, open book case study implies the student sees the case study long at the onset of the semester and then starts solving the problems presented in the case study, because small individuated problem solving activities undertaken through looking in depth at a case analysis, which is part of looking in depth in a research report, whether it's a complex or a small research, but there is an underlying case. Also, other than all the voices and literature information pieces, there's an underlying case that needs to be solved in a research report, an underlying problem that needs to be tackled. Then, in the summative assessment events, the skill set of conceptualization tools and instruments are developed. What I mean by that is, inside ops and risk management, the student is asked to conceive of a tool to measure enterprise-wide risk management. Whether it's for a big or a small business, the student is motivated to be finite about it, to break it down to a smaller area in a big business, or do focus on a smaller one, that you can wrap your mind around the complexity of it as the stepping stones in dealing with conceptualizing from theory to tools. Because that's what the conceptualization skill sits inside the research skill in the fourth IR. Can you conceive, can you engage with theory and the real world and conceive of a tool to measure something there, or to collect information around the problem area through an instrument in order to have data to make decisions upon. So the principle and the skill set around conceptualization to arrive at a research report, if you've never exercised it, how can we ask you to do research, to undertake research, if you've never actually conceptualized the tool? The second part, and which is key here in the scaffolding of the student into research skills, is we do a critique exercise, a self-critique exercise. So what we're saying in the first instance, to get you to be comfortable with engaging with new theory and theory, to engage with other voices and literature, is to conceive of a tool, go and present the tool to the small business. Don't yet use the tool to do something with, but go and present the tool to engage with an employer or an organization or a business owner, that you can sell the tool to them, to say, why did you conceive of this tool? How did you conceive of it? What do you think the benefits are? To collect information with them, to engage with them, to present it to them, in order to also develop presentation and engagement and communication skills. Because a manager who doesn't raise their hands is one who will never present. And most of the times we don't want to raise our hands because we are afeared to present, to stand up in a boardroom, to stand up in a counseling session or a consultation and present our ideas and thoughts. So the presentation skill is part of the communication skills, part of the fourth IR, is part of the modern business world. So we also need to get the student to say, once you've conceived of something, you also need to go and present it. Because it's one thing to conceive of it at your own desk and hold on to it, but have the confidence to present it. So to de-stake it, we're not saying in this assessment that we want the veracity of the tool to be determined. We simply want you to conceive of the tool and go and present the tool and receive some feedback on the tool. Even though that feedback is on your presentation abilities, is on the theoretical understanding of the tool, whether it's negative or positive is of no consequence. It's also about presenting and receiving the information. Then you undertake a self-critique of your experience throughout this. Because that's also, it's not just reflecting on information, it's also reflecting on how you went through the process. So receiving that feedback is professionally dealing with negative and positive information and reflecting on, did my conceptualization process lead to something valuable or not? Do I think it's valuable or not? And how could I have done it differently? So that reflection is also important because that's part of the research undertaking. It's part of solving problems. Are you able to just stand back, receive some critique, reflect on the process, and start again or amend? So inside brand management, the essay essay 1 is a brand awareness assessment and interview. So it's about the understanding of the importance of maintaining, improving, and upholding a brand so that the brand is associated with positive results. So that's a presentation that you package and present, or the student will package and present to a small business owner. In order to say, you as a small business owner, how can you advance your brand by improving it? By how can it be improved by how it's presented? We'll get to the other one. Through an interview, through a presentation mechanism. An interview and presentation mechanism. Okay, so again, that's part of engaging with the content. It's engaging with the literature, an unfamiliar terrain with a small business. It's about reaching out, shaking hands, meeting people, and presenting your ideas and thoughts and receiving feedback. And then there's also a reflective exercise. Then inside financial management and research methods, the students actually work in Excel. They actually use Excel to work up stats, work with models that we provide them, work with samples we provide them. When they arrive at the research report, in order to actually pull up their statistics into the spreadsheets and do the modeling with the stats, run the regressions, check the population samples, do the splits so that you can actually work up your own data in your mini research component, whether again, it's for the purpose of this qualification or it's a purpose for you're running your own marketing campaign, you want to check a small sample, you want to build something, you want to build that questionnaire or that survey and set it up, that skill is actually with you, it's embedded within the student. So, the core concepts here that we spoke about are all requirements in order to do this. So if we, by coincidence, have taught the theory of research methods in this period, but focused on these skill sets and all embodied research, in the research mechanism, in the research report, we're able to produce graduates that can undertake research, that have the managerial capacities of knowing the terrain, the modern terrain, and the variety of management concepts, and are able to grapple with complex issues, complex information sets, distill truth from falsehoods, distill more accurate from less accurate information, hear other voices, receive critique, conceive of, investigate problems, conceive of tools to investigate, work up the data to support the arguments, whether it's qualitative or quantitative data sets. And that makes this program unique. So this semester repeats itself. Obviously, the style of assessment structure repeats itself in semester B. So just as a quick note, human capital and talent management, we have a great text on the modern understanding of human capital, how to advance human capital through looking at it at a talent perspective and not just the traditional, yes, HR or human capital, yes, talent. No. Human capital is integrated through a talent approach. Talent management and human capital doesn't stand apart, it's one concept. And for example, legal aspects, negotiation skills is critical to us. There's contemporary issues in the legal sphere that managerial candidates need to be aware of holistically. For example, sexual harassment. For example, privacy, whether it's internal to the company or whether it's about the company's data and information sets. Race, gender, how to deal with diversity, and all those matters through the legal framework, because it's also part of the broader risk management framework. And then negotiation skills, which is critical to us to advance the understanding of how to negotiate the deal you want, how to negotiate the deal desirous for the company in favor of the company. And global marketing in the digital era also represents the opportunity to look at marketing methods and techniques in the modern era. By way of example, there's great pieces written today around how China has actually, and its last 20 years, has upended Western understanding of marketing, because they have started marketing in the digital era. They've never had the 4 Ps in mind at the onset. So looking at marketing in differentiated manner, and also preparing yourself for the global marketplace, which is key today, because you can start a small business at home and sell globally, never have customers in your own territory, by way of example. So, which is presented also through the digital era. So again, those skills and concepts are taught through these mechanisms in semester B. So also critical for the research report, other than that the student has the underlying skills that's prepping them to undertake the research, is inside the research methods. As the outcome for research, one of the outcomes is the research proposal. The student is given an example and samples of research proposals at the onset of the semester. And they're also given samples of a full research report that was graded at the onset of this semester. So it helps to contextualize. Why is all of this theory important? Why is the skills of using Excel and data so important? Because that they can see the end goal comes through the eye of the needle of the research proposal that leads to something that looks, i.e. there's the 5 chapters. And so each chapter is unpacked. That was the problem statement, and this is the data that supports the answers to the problem statement. That it contextualizes the actual underlying, somewhat always boring theory on research methodology, that they can see it. And when they undertake setting up their own research proposals, that they know where it will lead to. Why is the research proposal being asked in this to be set up in a certain manner? That they can see what does a format of an end goal look like. Then, if the student, so this is especially where this becomes very important, if the student fails the research proposal, there's always a supplementary opportunity granted in each semester, one supplementary opportunity granted every semester for SA1 and SA2. So in the event that they submit and they fail, there's one opportunity to resubmit, to still make the grade, so that when you start in semester B with the report, your chapter 1 is basically done because it's been approved and passed. You can now move on to the second stages. However, if the student fails this, then we have also failed in preparing and setting the student in motion for this. The student will have to re-register and re-undertake the learning and the experience that comes with building the proposal. Working with the stats, working with information sets, arriving at a proposal that's adequate, and both we and the student are confident that a pass will set them up for success here. A pass doesn't mean a drag and a problem, an overtly challenged experience here. We're both paid in skills and in the initial stages of identifying a research problem to be undertaken.
For additional program-specific information, visit our website boston.co.za to download the Postgraduate Diploma in Management fact sheet and apply for admission today. Boston City Campus. Serious about education. Serious about you.